So, what if the way we handle divorce is just completely broken for everyone? That's the powerful idea at the heart of Emma Johnson's book, The 50-50 Solution. It calls for a massive shift in how we think about parenting, fairness, and what it means to separate as a family. Let's dive in.
The author, Emma Johnson, kicks things off with her own story. See, she went through a divorce, and on paper, she won. She got the house, primary custody, the child support, the whole deal. But that victory, it didn't take long for it to feel a lot more like a loss. And that feeling revealed a huge problem with how we even define winning a divorce in the first place. And her experience really shines a light on a major flaw in what she calls the standard issue divorce. This is like the default setting that courts and lawyers often push, and it's built on some really outdated, really unequal ideas.
So, what does this standard divorce actually look like? Well, it's a script we've all seen before, right? The mother becomes the main parent, doing most of the heavy lifting. The father gets kind of demoted to a weekend visitor and basically a checkbook. The result? It's just the perfect recipe for burnout on one side and deep resentment on the other.
Now, this setup doesn't just stir up bad feelings. It comes with a really high cost for both parents. And the book is super clear about this. This is not a women versus men issue. No, it's about a broken system that forces people into these stiff, unequal roles that end up hurting everybody. And you can see both sides of that broken coin right here. Mothers, they get saddled with the lion's share of the parenting, which often means their careers take a hit and they face total burnout from all that emotional work. But at the same time, fathers are losing that daily connection with their kids. They're losing a huge piece of their identity, which you can imagine is just emotionally crushing. So why on earth do we keep defaulting to this painful model? The source argues it all goes back to this stereotype that's everywhere, the doofus dad. You know the guy from the sitcoms. He loves his kids, sure, but he's kind of clumsy and clueless and can't be trusted with the real work of parenting. It's played for laughs, but it has some very serious consequences. And here's the thing. That stereotype just doesn't match reality. Research in the book shows that fathers are just as committed to their kids as mothers are. But look at this confidence gap. The cultural story we tell actually takes a toll, making dads feel less competent even when they're totally capable.
Okay, so if the standard model is a mess, what's the alternative? Well, the book proposes a solution that's not about finding a middle ground. It's about totally upgrading our idea of what a successful post-divorce family can look like. It's called 50-50 shared parenting. And the idea is actually pretty simple, but also pretty revolutionary. Equal time, equal responsibility, and sharing expenses right down the middle. It's a framework that starts from a totally different assumption, that both parents are equally vital, equally capable, and equally necessary, period.
And the real-world impact of this shift is, well, it's kind of staggering. A survey cited in the book found that mothers on a 50-50 schedule are 54% more likely to earn over $100,000 a year. I mean, wow, that's not just a small change. That is a life-changing difference. And the good news just ripples out from there. When mothers have that equal time, their careers can finally get back on track. When fathers are deeply involved, they become way more confident and engaged. And you know what happens when you take the custody battle off the table? The conflict just plummets. And right in the middle of it all, the kids get what they need most, real, meaningful time with both of their parents. And listen, this isn't just some nice social theory. It's actually backed up by science. As neuroscientist Dr. Jody Pawlowski explains in the book, parenting isn't some innate skill you're born with, It's learned. The brain literally adapts and rewires itself, whether you're a mom or a dad. The only ingredient it needs is time with the child. But, of course, this brings up a huge and critical question. What about cases that involve abuse? Is a 50-50 default actually safe when there's a risk of family violence? And yeah, this is the number one objection you hear. The absolute biggest fear is that a blanket 50-50 rule would end up trapping kids with a dangerous parent. The book doesn't shy away from this at all. It tackles the argument head-on by looking at the actual data behind our assumptions. And this is where the data gets really surprising. The source shows that intimate partner violence is not just a male problem. Our culture often frames men as the aggressors, but these figures show it's a much more complex issue that isn't specific to one gender. It's a human problem. Okay, so what happens when a state actually puts this into practice? Let's look at Kentucky. In 2017, they passed a law that made 50-50 parenting the starting point. And the result? Did violence go up? No.
Domestic violence filings in family court were cut in half. The argument is that when you remove the high-stakes, winner-take-all custody fight, you actually reduce the very conflict that can fuel those kinds of accusations.
So, at the end of the day, the book presents this as something much bigger than just a legal fix for divorcing couples. It's framed as the necessary next step in the journey toward genuine gender equality.
I mean, think about it. How can we ever get to real equality for women in the workplace if we're still enforcing massive inequality at home? For women to have the same professional opportunities, men have to be expected to take on the same parental responsibilities. The two are completely fundamentally linked.
And that's the powerful question this explainer leaves us with. Is true gender equality even possible until we start seeing fathers and mothers as equally essential? It reframes the whole debate, suggesting that the path to a more equal future might just run right through our family courts, all driven by that one simple, powerful idea: 50-50.